There are many certain arcade racing games that failed. In May of 2010, Blur, an arcade-style vehicular combat game, was released.
The game was made as a spiritual successor to the Project Gotham Racing series. The last installment was PGR4, which all added bikes to the lineup. Afterwards, in 2007, Activision acquired Bizarre Creations, meaning the rights to the PGR series is now held by Microsoft. Blur is centered around vehicular combat. This is basically Mario Kart for adults, with its infamous Race Like a Big Boy campaign, which was part of the commercials.
However, its release was poorly timed. It released a week after Split Second Velocity, a month after Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing, and later Need for Speed Hot Pursuit, in fall of that year. Not to mention that Mod Nation Racers also was released at the same month. The game received positive reviews on Metacritic.
Despite the disappointing sales, Nick Davies of Bizarre Creations had announced in July of 2010 that the studio intended to create more games in the series and wanted to make it the biggest racing franchise. He attributed the sales performance of Blur to the fact that the game was released at a very busy time for racing games. However, he believed that the strong multiplayer component would give the game staying power, and it's going to be a slow burner. However, this did not please Activision, as on February 18th, 2011, it was announced that Bizarre Creations would be closing after failing to find a buyer, stating that over the past 3 years since our purchase of Bizarre Creations, the fundamentals of the racing game genre have changed significantly. Although we made a substantial investment in creating a new IP, Blur, it did not find a commercial audience. Bizarre is a very talented team of developers. However, because of the broader academic factors impacting the market, we are exploring our options regarding the future of the studio, including a potential sale of the business. A sequel was meant to be in the works, but unfortunately it was ultimately canceled when Bizarre Creations was closed by Activision. However, right now that Activision is now under Microsoft, this kind of made us think for right now. Actually, the big question, will Blur ever come back, though? I mean, it's now under Microsoft. Well, the answer here is this, Fane. No. Due to the fact that Bizarre Creations is gone, Blur is not going to come back. To be fair, not even its sequel. Not only this, but the people from Bizarre Creations already moved on. And right now, some of Bizarre Creations are either in different game studios or at the Forza Horizon development team right now. After Bizarre Creations closed down, the final blow for the game was the use of licensed cars, as those licenses has expired, and all games of Blur have been removed from digital storefronts in 2013. The whole fault on why Blur failed was because of Activision's impatience, according to Critical Pixels. Thank you very much, Bizarre Creations, for giving us this great Mario Kart for adults game. We will never forget you. Too bad your James Bond Bloodstone failed, as it received mixed scores.
Also in May of 2010, speaking of Split Second, before Blur came out in the next week, Split Second was released.
Split Second Velocity takes place in a fictional TV show that's airing on BRTV. The game is also described as a vehicular combat game. Instead of power-ups, the game uses the power play abilities, and it also has some burnout-ish to many who are fans of that series from Criterion Games.
However, like Blur, its release date was also poorly timed. Despite it has no licensed vehicles, and it features renditioned fictional vehicles, renditions of real-life models like the Ryback Brawler, which is basically an inspiration from the Chevrolet Camaro. The game also failed, and it also was a commercial failure. Due to a lack of marketing, releasing on the same day as Red Dead Redemption and releasing a week before Blur, the game fell under the radar for many arcade racing fans, even for people who don't know about the game. This game was developed by Climax Racing / Climax Studios, who later became BlackRock as part of the rebrand. They were part of Climax Group, a British game company. The same people who were responsible for Hot Wheels World Race 2003 and 2004's Hot Wheels Stunt Track Challenge, two amended Hot Wheels games that were actually considered as great best Hot Wheels games on the PS2 and on the 6th gen consoles. Due to impatience from Disney and due to a lack of marketing, meaning that Disney did not really give a crap about the game's marketing, the Split Second was a commercial failure. After that, it was announced that BlackRock Studios now received layoffs, leaving only a few people who were working at the studio before being shut down altogether in 2011. Just like Blur, Split Second Velocity was alluding to a new sequel that's coming out soon and later. However, it was ultimately cancelled as well.
In March of 2012, Bandai Namco released Ridge Racer Unbounded. IGN described the game as a reboot of the Ridge Racer series and would not be developed by Namco themselves.
Ridge Racer Unbounded was developed by flat-out developer Bugbear Entertainment, the same people who gave us the first Flat-Out 2, Flat-Out Ultimate Carnage, and later Wreckfest. And later who is now working on Wreckfest 2, now that they're under THQ Nordic. Now, IGN had described the game as actually a reboot of the franchise. However, it would go on to be a commercial failure, and the series died, as the game was actually touted as one of the reasons why it died. But why? Well, it's simple. It should never have the Ridge Racer name. It was a total departure from the series with its style, atmosphere, game design, vehicles, and more, according to Gamer Alex. The game is a lot closer to Burnout with its car combat, and Flat-Out with the environmental destruction. It was stated that Namco noticed the recent commercial failures of Blur and Split Second. Being these games are brand new IPs, they thought giving this project the Ridge Racer name would help it out. Unfortunately, this only ended up doing the complete opposite. Many Ridge Racer fans felt betrayed by the game, as they waited years of waiting for a proper sequel, and instead we got a spin-off, or what is supposed to be a reboot. It was a horrible decision to put the game under the Ridge Racer name, which hurt its chances in the marketplace. And get this, it released on the same day as I turned 10 years old, March 27th, 2012. What a surprise.
After Unbounded failed miserably, the franchise died off. After we got more mobile Ridge Racer games, which didn't help its longevity, an 8th installment of the Ridge Racer game was announced, and it was set to be a launch title for the Nintendo Switch but was ultimately cancelled as Ridge Racer Unbounded completely damaged the franchise, the series, and the studio. The years have passed, and we now have a development team based in Milan. Milestone, who worked on the 2 Hot Wheels Unleashed games, are currently working on the 2026 Screamer reboot. With it currently in development, it has a lot to prove.
In June of 2018, a new game called Onrush was released. Released for the PS4 and Xbox One, it was developed by Evolution Studios, who is now Codemasters Evo, aka Codemasters Cheshire. The studio who worked on Drive Club and the MotorStorm series, who was shut down by Sony Interactive in 2016 despite actively working on games, Onrush tried to fill a huge gap in the arcade racing genre. This is an arcade-style vehicular combat game in which players drive a variety of off-road vehicles, from motorcycles to buggies. Released in 2018, the game flopped extremely hard, selling only around 1,000 copies in the UK on release, despite getting positive reviews by critics. The game also received little post-launch content, and its PC version was silently dropped. Then, its online service were shut down, and the game has been delisted from digital storefronts not long after. Gamer Alex explained why Onrush failed, from its game design, price point, and the game engine. Ever since Evolution Studios was shut down by Sony Interactive and was later been acquired by Codemasters, the team could not use the technology they were using when they were under PlayStation and Sony. Mind everybody, they had access to Codemasters' in-house Ego engine, which has shown to be one of the best engines Gamer Alex has ever seen in racing games. Why not just use the Ego engine for that game instead? Especially right now, with the team now merged with Criterion Games, all of that time was spent on an engine that was only used for 2 games, Onrush and Dirt 5. What a freaking waste. Honestly, while Onrush itself is actually very chaotic, Codemasters honestly didn't listen to fans who just wanted a spiritual successor to MotorStorm. Instead, we got a team-based racing game without a proper racing mode, a lack of marketing to promote the game, and microtransactions in a $60 game that wasn't even worth a price to begin with. In the wake of Onrush's failure, Codemasters Evo lost a lot of their employees due to layoffs and ended up getting rebranded from Codemasters Evo to Codemasters Cheshire. After Codemasters Cheshire were tasked to make Dirt 5 in about 2 years, when Codemasters is now under EA, Codemasters Cheshire now was merged with Criterion Games, who are currently working with Criterion for Battlefield, for the new Battlefield game, or something like that.
In September of 2018, a new street racing game, titled Super Street, the game was released, developed by Team 6 Game Studios and Rebel Games and published by Lion Castle Entertainment.
Made in Unreal Engine 4, the game is an inspiration by the Midnight Club series, which is made by Rockstar Games in Rockstar San Diego. The player races events using fictional takes on real-world vehicles. There's an extensive car customization selection in the garage, and there are realistic damage models, since there is no licensing limitations regarding its vehicles. There are different stages and maps for each terrain, from the desert to small towns and big cities. This is another arcade racing game that tries to fill the huge gap. The soundtrack was composed by Dion Van Herden and was released on September 11th, 2018, of fall days. In December, an update was released for all platforms, including new cars, customization, 5 new race events, and there was a 50% discount on the game in stores. However, the game received mixed scores by critics, with the upsides being the extreme sense of customization and having a heavily realistic damage system, but the criticisms were that the game did not seem finished, and it was in a pretty unpolished state. Just like what happened with other arcade racers like Onrush, it was also overpriced. The game wasn't polished enough to justify that price tag, but there were also not enough substance there for the price at all. Not to mention, the game was also being compared to Road Rage, which is another vehicular combat game which was developed in the same engine. However, that game received generally unfavorable reviews, with the game being underwhelming, including the combat, driving, presence of glitches and poor graphics, and an empty world. and was listed as the second worst game of 2017. Team 6 Studios never focus on the physics and other sorts, as they don't intend to learn from their previous mistakes from their older games at all. But I'm pretty sure you guys are pretty confident that they're the same studio who gave us Fallout 3, Chaos and Destruction, which really failed. And also NASCAR Arcade Rush, which was developed by them and published by Game Melt Entertainment. What the hell? One rant. NASCAR Arcade Rush? More like NASCAR Suckcade Rush. I'd rather play NASCAR Unleashed or what else? The NASCAR Leapster game on the Leapster L Max rather than NASCAR Arcade Rush. Oh my god. While I do like the extensive car customization, nowhere as good as Nickelodeon Kart Racers. Sorry, Game Mill, but I'm afraid I'm gonna have to dislike the NASCAR Arcade Rush. And also, why on earth did you hire a terrible studio who worked on Super Street the game? No offense. Not only was Super Street the game was so terrible, but the game, despite getting little updates, the game's still not the most stable, and it did not receive any update patches like fixing some physics and such. That game needed a lot more time in development. Super Street the game tried to be an inspirational game and tried to be a spiritual successor to Midnight Club, but fell short into recapturing Nat Spark. I would compare it to another Unreal Engine for a racing game, and this being Trail Out. Just like that, Trail Out was made by a very small indie team and was developed over a few years, and it also was tested by a few gamers. And notice how it's not overpriced. And there is very much polish than Super Street the game. Super Street the game was a poor attempt to cash in into the fans of the Midnight Club series, and would be the last time we would get anything related to the series. Other dishonorable mentions: Fallout 4 Total Insanity and Fast and Furious Crossworlds are a few that come to mind. There are also other failures in the arcade racing genre, this being Full Auto 1 and Full Auto 2 Battle Lines. Two vehicular combat games that was made by Pseudo Interactive.
Those arcade racing games had promises, and would have been loved and getting great improvements to overhaul gameplay, but they got painful fates that were not deserving of it. While some games like Blur, Split Second Velocity, and Flatted 4, Total Insanity are enjoyable, others broke people down. The arcade rap genre, if you're still wondering, is still going strong, but look on the bright side, we're getting Recreation and Screamer 2026 soon. I just hope that we get newer arcade racing games that will not get an unpolished experience.
For more, make sure to check out and look up more of the failed arcade racing games like Blur, Split Second, Onrush, and Super Street the game. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. And welcome back, you TTS voices. It's so great to have you back, as we all missed you. I hope you guys all enjoyed this video, and have a great day. Thanks for watching this video. If you like this video, please consider subscribing and turn on post notifications, which is the bell right next to the subscribe button. Also, don't forget to share this video and comment. Some requests may be accepted.